Hello crafty friends, I'm Lien from Studio Kato and I'm so happy to be joining you again today on the Crafty Meraki YouTube channel. If you've seen any of my posts during the YouTube hop or during the Instagram hops, you know that I am loving the florals in this release and I am continuing that trend today. I am using the tulip set. This is, I'm so bad with the names. I think these are called the spring blooms. I will make sure all of the correct names and product links will be in the description below. I'm stamping that onto an A2 sized card panel of Clairefontaine DCP 250 GSM cardstock with Distress Oxide ink. This is the Pumice stone ink, and I love the effect of this Distress Oxide ink on white paper. So this is just going to be my background. I am going to add a little bit of splatter of that same ink, so I smushed it down onto my blending mat, which is just a laminated sheet of white cardstock, added some water, and picked it up with a brush to splatter it on the page. Now I want to do some ink blending on these floral dies, but I want them to be kept in place while I ink blend because the pieces are quite small. Now this is the first time I did this for these tulips and with this paper, and actually this paper is a little bit too thin to do this because it's not sturdy enough to do ink blending before it's layered if it's just tiny pieces that aren't really kept in place. They are just kept in place with this tape. This is just some painter's tape, but I hope you check out my video that I did for the YouTube hop because I explain it a lot better there, how you can easily ink blend your die cuts, your tiny die cuts on some purple tape. You better layer them up before you do this because that makes them a lot sturdier and easier to handle. Now, these are all from the Athena die set by Crafty Meraki. I love this die set. I love tulips because they're my mom's favorite flower. So these are going to be perfect for Mother's Day or my mom's birthday or just a hello card. I definitely got these because of my mom. So I am adding some red ink, just some Pinkfresh Studio inks to these. These are already die cut from colored cardstock, which makes it easier to color them because they already have a base color. I am just adding some really simple shading. These leaves are also from that die set. I love these leaves. I love some large leaves. I can definitely see me just using the leaves on a card in the near future. I hope you stay tuned for that. And I'm doing the same there. So I tape them in place on that painter's tape, and then I can just add some ink to them to add some shading and depth. Now for the flowers, you can see that I actually cut them apart. I am going to add dimension to these. I don't know if you know those Christmas cards where you had to cut tiny pieces by hand to give several pieces of to give it a three-dimensional look. You die cut 5 little hands of an angel to make the hand seem more prominent in the foreground. It was a weird process, but it was really relaxing. I'm kind of doing that today. So I cut these apart and I am layering the cut apart pieces together. So I did layer a full-size white flower behind the full-size red flower. And then I die cut, no, I didn't die cut these. I cut these out and I cut them the same way. So it's really easy to cut along those guidelines because you do have a little bit of detail there. It just doesn't cut all the way through. So I cut 3 extra pieces of white cardstock for the petal that is in the foreground and 2 extra pieces of white cardstock for the petal that is somewhat in the middle. I'm not the best at explaining that. I probably made it sound a lot more convoluted than it actually is. I just cut them apart. So I had the right petal and the left petal, and whichever one is in the foreground, which you can see because it blocks the other petal, I cut 3 pieces to back it so it's higher. And then I cut 2 pieces to back the other petal, so it is a little higher than the rest of the flower, but it's not as high as the petal in the foreground. So I just did that for all 3 of these flowers. It goes really fast. You just, it's really easy to cut these apart. Like I said, the detail is there. It just doesn't cut all the way through. I'm also going to add an extra layer of white cardstock behind the leaves to make them a little bit more sturdy and a little bit more dimensional, because I love my dimension on my cards. I definitely went to the School of Laura Fedora. Dimension is life, and it really makes your card design pop. So it's a little bit of extra time you spend on this card, but it's definitely worth it. I even did the same for the stems. So this die set also cuts out the stems, and I just die cut those 2 times out of white cardstock and once from green cardstock and layered those together. For tiny detailed pieces like this, I like to keep them in the negative space if at all possible, because that makes it a lot easier to layer them up. Now I die cut a blanket stitched rectangle from Pigfresh Studio from this, and that is just going to give me a little frame, but I did want to add a little bit more of a frame, so I'm just drawing one on with a gold Posca marker. These are paint markers, so they're acrylic paint, but it's a lot less messy than actual acrylic paint. It gives you a really fine line. These are the 0.7 size, I think. They're the tiniest size of these markers. And I have the gold one and the white one because that's what I mostly use in my gel pens, and I'm replacing my gel pens with these because these have a better coverage overall. So that's a little frame I added, and then I can add everything to my card. I'm adding the outer piece of the background to my card base with some Barely Art Precision Craft glue, and then I am backing that inside piece with a piece of cardboard, because that gives it a little bit more dimension and it's very sturdy. And once that's in place, I can start adding my flowers. I'm just trying to gauge where to place all of them, and once I'm happy with where they are, I can glue them down with more of that Barely Art Precision Craft glue. I glued down the flowers first because I think the placement of those is the most important, because those are actually the focal point, and the leaves and the stems are just there to make them look not like they're floating. So I'm gluing the stems in place as well. They are overhanging a little bit, so I will trim those off with my scissors in a minute. And this is just so easy to put together, especially because I added that extra dimension to them, because that makes it a lot sturdier and a lot easier to handle the smaller pieces. I'm putting the leaves everywhere in between, and I'm only adding glue to the bottom of the leaves so they can flare up a little bit, and that gives the card a lot more dimension again, but also a lot more movement, and it's just really interesting when the leaves flare up. I always do this with my floral cards, and I'm not gonna stop anytime soon. I really love it. So that's my finished card for today. I did make a matching envelope and forgot to film it. I actually forgot to film the matching envelope for next week's video as well, but that is also going to be a cute video, so I hope you stick around for that. For this card, I really love all the dimension in there. I didn't even add any embellishments because I didn't want to take away from the gorgeous Athena tulips, and I hope you are enjoying the new Crafty Meraki cheer release as much as I am, because these floral dies are definitely my favorite products that Crafty Meraki does. I really want to collect all of them. They are so pretty and so fun to use, and they make for really quick cards too. I am hoping to show you one soon. But for me, for next week, you are going to get an Easter card, which is also going to be really cute. So I hope you stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.